Yeah, Halloween came early and they decided to dress up as an elite run defense. That's the only explanation. And statistically, I mean, it is supported. This was their best performance on the ground and success rate against the run in over a year, or exactly 1 year, pardon me. Some of that is structural. I know Marcus is going to get to it, but I want to compliment a couple of the players who really jumped out in that to that end. Jalen Carter took over this football game. Granted, against an injured interior offensive line, but he was an absolute force, both rushing the passer and against the run. And then, Zach Bond. The Zach Bond revenge game, I guess. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was on the field the entire game as part of their base defense, and he was flying around, making tackles, fitting the run, sniffing everything out. He was spectacular in this game.
Speaking of Zach Bond, it'll be a historical tape that's brought up about setting the edge on one of his plays that they should show for the history of football. But more importantly, meaning you got to it. Structurally with this zone scheme that they were able to see from the New Orleans Saints, they went to. I told y'all, it works, man. It works. I don't know why more people don't go to it. Listen, this was one of those answers for the zone scheme that obviously we saw Alvin Kamara. But here you'll see Jalen Carter make this play in the backfield. But more importantly, it's about the funnel that's created. And you take guys off of linebackers when you line up in this scheme. You look at the Bear front a lot of times. This was the answer when you and I played in the league, RC. And teams ran the ball 35, 40 times a game, which was a normal week in and week out occurrence. When you couldn't get something stopped, you went and took gaps away pre-snap. Yeah. And that's what the Bear front does. But it also allows those athletic defensive linemen to penetrate. Those 2-3 techniques that's created, and the center can't help. And that's the gist of the defense, and they played it to a T.
Yo, fella, I was going to ask you, were you surprised that the Saints lived in so much 21 personnel? Because Philly played that Bear front basically from the first snap of the game, and the Saints just kept the fullback on the field.
Damn,
were you surprised by that?
I wasn't surprised because when you score 90 points in 2 games, like you think that you're going to get away with it at some point.
RC, the Eagles got it going in the second half, finally, offensively. What changed?
Well, one, they started to give the ball to Saquon Barkley. It was almost as if the drop pass on 4th down on Monday night made them think they couldn't put the football in his hands. And it also was the way that they worked through Dallas Goedert after not having a guy like A.J. Brown, seeing someone like Devontae Smith get banged up in that way. And I don't believe I gave Jalen Hurts enough credit watching the game live, but when you put the all-22 tape on, when you watch it again and you break it down, he played a phenomenal game. Other than the interception to Tyrann Mathieu, which you should have seen Devontae Smith fight harder across his face, he was flawless the way he ran the football, got the football out of his hand, threw it out of bounds when he needed to, when nothing was alive down the field. I really love the way this team as a whole responded to losing, because if Saquon Barkley catches that ball, we're having a different conversation about the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think the Saints defense has got to be sick to themselves because they were unbelievable in this game and in many ways won the football game. And, you know, that long, shallow cross by Dallas Goedert, they actually ran that same play earlier in the 4th quarter on like 3rd and 5. It's the same pre-snap motion as Saquon. They bring him in. Dallas Goedert, it's the same mesh. It just comes from the left side of the formation. New Orleans runs into each other essentially again, but the Honey Badger gets through, and it's a first down. This is the one earlier in the 4th quarter. This is 3rd and 5, and now it's a 20-yard gain. Kellen Moore quite literally calls the same exact play just from the different opposite hash. And the Saints defended the same way, and this time all 3 of those guys run into each other. If you take away those 2 plays, really that play, and learn from it, the Saints are going to win the game.
Okay, well, you could do that we could take away a play or 2 from every single game, and then every single team wins or loses. Right? You take away the play of the Bengals on the Chiefs, and now the Chiefs lose. You take away the play of the Ravens, and now the Chiefs lose that game. I mean, we could do this all day. So I love Dan Orlovsky, but that's, you got to look at it because you could do that for every game, and I even do that. But you have to look at the game as a whole. Who was more deserving of the win? Who played better football on both sides of the ball? And the answer was the Eagles. The Eagles absolutely didn't play perfect ball, but they were clearly the better team. In fact, if the Saints ended up winning that game, which it absolutely could have, it would have been way more about the Eagles losing that game than the Saints winning. This game, this is my problem with this, the way how Orlovsky is kind of painting this right now, feels like he's saying that this is more about the Saints losing this game than the Eagles winning, and I personally do not see it that way. The defense made the Saints disoriented all day. I mean, 72 yards at half, under 100 yards rushing the entire game. I mean, they had not only did they stop the run, but they had huge situational stops, like really important moments, batted balls, huge interception, great blitzing, great pressure on Carr. I mean, Carr was uncomfortable from start to finish. I mean, he really was, outside of maybe like the opening drive or so. But they took away the big plays for the Saints, and that disoriented the Saints. Without the big play offense from the Saints, they did not know what to do or how to play ball, right? And Jimmy Johnson himself referred to the Eagles as one of the best teams in the league. Now, he said they have to play better, and I still don't know what Sirianni's doing. Going for it on all these fourth downs is just going to drive me nuts, quite frankly. But I agree with RC. Jalen Hurts did play phenomenal, right? And I know people are going to kind of highlight the turnovers and stuff, but the pass, he did exactly what he was asked to do. You could say that he should have known better or whatnot. Okay, maybe. But that play, I don't know if the play call was the appropriate play call. And they even talked about in the broadcast, you need a bigger, stronger man than what Devontae could do. What are you going to do? But the fact that he was able to overcome missing 2 starting linemen, because that's what Mina Kimes was like, oh, well, Jalen Carter was able to take advantage of, of an injured whatever. And it's like, okay, let's settle down here. And the Kansas City Chiefs were able to take advantage of the Falcons missing their 2 linemen. Right? We could do this all day. And there are things that should be pointed out, but not be pointed out in a way that's the only reason why they won. Right? It's too extreme. It's too much of an emphasis. We can bring that up to a degree, but that wasn't the big story. For the Falcons, it was the big story because it took away their entire run game, and now they were just done. And it was like, what are the Falcons supposed to do? You're taking away their big weapon, and you have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins who's not going to be able to handle pressure as well. That makes it a lot more devastating. It makes it more impactful. But to paint it out like this is it just feels like you're emphasizing it too much, and this is why the game unfolded that it did. And I just disagree with that, quite frankly, because no matter what they tried to do with Kamara and Carr, the Eagles just had an answer. They just had an answer every step of the way. But Jalen Hurts to be able to overcome missing his 2 starting linemen, his wide receiver 1 and 2, I mean, what else can you ask him to do? I mean, he ripped off some really important key runs, continues to throw on the run out of the pocket beautifully, targeted over 8 different receivers. Obviously, Saquon is a beast. Obviously, multiple touchdowns. Obviously, 140-some yards and a 2-point conversion, right? Obviously a beast. People tried to question whether or not getting Saquon was a good move. They overpaid for Saquon. This isn't gonna help them be a better team. Yeah. If he catches that ball, they're 3-0 specifically because of Saquon Barkley. In fact, the only reason why they're not 3-0 is technically, and I don't blame him, I defended him, because of Saquon. So, yeah, it's safe to say that he's a steal of the century. You don't think the Dallas Cowboys wish they had Saquon? Yeah, I think they do. You don't think the Chiefs wish they had Saquon Barkley? Yeah, I think they do. How about the Bears? How about the Titans? I mean, we can go through every team, except for maybe the 49ers who have Christian McCaffrey, and ironically the Saints who have Kamara. But I mean, virtually every single team is going to be better with Saquon Barkley. And in the year where running is as important as it's ever been in the NFL, having someone like Saquon Barkley has been a massive luxury. Has been paying dividends endlessly. Yeah, I mean, even if the Eagles lost this game, you could have justified it. You could have justified it of all the injuries just catching up, because then even defensively the injuries caught up. And then the Saints were able to kind of get something going, especially once Slay went down. It was just like, the injuries just kind of start to pile up, and it's just hard to overcome that. So the fact that they were able to still win was really, really huge and key. And there's been a lot of hate of of the Eagles as a whole, but especially Jalen Hurts and not being able to play good without A.J. Brown. And this is a perfect example of him playing a great game, getting a big win against the hottest team in the NFL without A.J. Brown, missing Devontae for a chunk of the game, missing 2 starting linemen. Defense banged up. He put the team on his back. The Eagles as a whole stepped up. Goddard, Saquon, of course. It's a big win. It definitely is a big win. They definitely have some more to work on. They definitely have to grow. They definitely have to get better. They definitely have to get better making decisions, both offensively from a personnel standpoint as well as from a coaching standpoint. But if you're gonna rip them for losing against the Falcons and not give them necessarily the full-on credit for beating the Packers, well, then you better give them credit for beating the Saints, who again were dominating. They decimated the Dallas Cowboys. The frame of reference for the Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys. And look what the Eagles did versus the Saints. Those things matter at this early on in the season when you're trying to figure out who these teams are. Those comparisons matter. And they matter tremendously. There's this feeling that the Eagles have this awful defense, and maybe it's not a top 5 defense in the NFL, totally fair. But there's this feeling that they're trash because they gave up points to the Packers, a top team in the NFL. Or that they gave up the run game to a dynamic, explosive run with the Falcons and Bijan Robinson. And quite frankly, they held them to under 15 points going into the final 40 seconds of the game. That's a great defensive stuff. Yeah, they gave up chunk plays, but their red zone was awesome. They stopped the Falcons for the most part until eventually the stick just broke. That happens in football. You could only, lean on someone so much. And now you had this game where the defense was great start to finish against the high-flying, high-powered, physical, fast, dynamic Saints offense. The Eagles deserve tremendous credit for that. And they weren't even home on the road. Huge win all around. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What did you guys all think about the Eagles win over the New Orleans Saints? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.